Hello, hello, welcome, Per and Frank. How are you guys doing? Thanks for joining us today. I'm not sure if I pronounce your name well, Per, or maybe it's just the first letters of your name or something. You can tell me in the chat. Hello, Jenny. Thanks for joining us. Sven, I remember you from last week. Thanks for coming again. My name is Per, that's correct. Great. Hi, Frank. Lovely.
Great to see you
So,
again.
so all of you have been joining us for the past webinars. Thank you so much for the loyalty. I'm just gonna wait 1 more minute and then I will start with going through the presentation. I was traveling this morning, so my energy is a little bit low. But I think, with all the questions and the insights from our speakers, I will pick up again. Can you see my screen all right?
Yes, at least I can.
That's good. Okay, so we can start already, I guess. And then if more people join, we can greet them on the way.
Yeah, because last week I was putting menti.com and the code in the chat, and then I realized that it appears all along the presentation. So there's no way to do. It makes no sense. There's no need to do that. But well, anyway.
You never know.
Yeah.
Maybe some people trust the chat more.
I mean, the good thing
Okay.
with the chat is that you
Yes.
just copy paste. You don't need to read it and type
Exactly.
it manually. Sorry, Victoria.
All right. So officially, welcome everyone. This is part 7 of the webinar series, and I think you know us already, but I'll just do the brief introduction again. I'm Victoria, and I'll be your facilitator for today. And we have 2 excellent speakers. We have Cristina Jimenez, the delivery director at Share PLM. Hi, Chris.
Hello. Thank you, Vic.
And Thomas Winden, managing director at Share PLM Germany. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Vic. Thanks.
So thank you both for joining one more webinar session. So as I said, we're now in week 7 of the series. We've seen a lot of topics before, including vision and narrative, change readiness, pilots, data migration. Last week we did system and implementation. And then we have 3 weeks to go with adoption and engagement, scale and improve, and implementing change across the whole organization. Now, let's go through the agenda. So our roadmap for today covers the following. So we will start by looking at the reason why deployments fail. Next, we will discuss how to validate your PLM solution. Then we'll talk about the human aspects of rollouts. After that, we'll walk through the steps of executing a successful rollout. And in the end, as always, we'll close with a final wrap-up as well as a Q&A section. Okay? By now you're all very familiar with Menti, so this is the QR code and the password for today. Oh, I see we have more people. So hi Pablo and hi Ashish. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, see 4, 5 people, so it's all of us in Menti. Perfect. Before we dive in, before I start asking more questions, both to the audience and the speakers, I'd like to ask, what are you expecting to learn from the session today? Anything specific you want to learn about either validation or rollout, maybe? Or maybe you're just here to listen and learn in general. Maybe you're very new to this topic and you just want to know what people say. Key learnings on rollout. Mostly validation, says someone else. Get a short overview. You will for sure get that. Different rollout approaches. Okay, I think we'll be covering all of that, right? Okay, let's move on. Now, we want to know you a little bit better. So, where are you at the moment in your PLM journey? So, are you still designing, building it? Are you in the validation stage? Maybe you're preparing a rollout. Maybe you have a rollout already in progress, or you've gone posted and you're in the stabilization phase. Okay, we have someone just starting, two people being in validation, and two other people being in post go live. So it's going to be very interesting to hear the opinions and the insights from the people who have gone live already. Okay. Now I want you to think of validation in only one word. What does it really feel like for you? Maybe it's a pain, like someone said when we asked the same question about data migration. Maybe it's exciting. It works.
That's great.
That's a good start. More positive start. I see we also have Ole. Hi, Ole. Thank you for joining us. Lots of use cases. Not approved. Lots of use cases and test. Effort.
Yeah, you don't get it for free.
Perfect. Thank you all for sharing. Now let's go to, much expectations. It's an interesting one. Criteria. All right. Now, I want you to think of your projects and which of the following answers applies the best to you. So, in your project, is validation mostly technical? Is it mostly on the business side? Is it maybe a mix of both, or it's still something that's a bit unclear? So far, we have two people answering technical and two saying it's a mix of both. So no one has it unclear. And no one's project is mostly, the validation is mostly done by business. So I'd like to hear from our speakers now. So where does validation fall short typically? So Chris, I'll start with you. How would you answer this question?
I think one of the typical things that come in the validation, and I think that was highlighted in the question right before, is that they sometimes focus too much in the technical, in making sure that the solution works and or doesn't work. And it really, like when you are validating, you really need to understand if it works in practice, in the real life, if it's really matching the business way of working, right? So I would say that's one of the things that happens in the validation, and that we sometimes underestimate, and that's actually the first step with user adoption. Like if people are there just testing test cases that have not direct relation with their business work, they start missing the adoption and the interest and the confidence to use the systems.
And I think that's also what Per said in the chat, that it's very codependent on the business side, so it can never be technical only, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Thank you, Per. I see that we are aligned. Yeah, like but sometimes we see these, like there are SATs, there are UATs, and we will talk about that later. But even in SATs, it is important that business is included and that we involve them since the very beginning in any testing. So I think validation typically falls short in the scope, how we only want to tackle the technical side, and also the involvement of the people, of course.
What about you, Thomas? Where does validation fall short for you?
Yeah, it's a in the experience I gained in the past 15 years working for a system integrator, it was also mainly the part that validation falls short on business testers and end users doing all the tests, and really focusing on the functionality of the system, if that really is fulfilling the requirements and working as needed, really as needed for fulfilling the business use cases. And this is always a shortcome in the validation phase. And another thing is, unfortunately, validation is usually at the end of a project or at the end of the release. And every delay that is coming from the phases before, having a fixed go live date, which is often, unfortunately, the case, the validation is falling short on time, because the time frame for this step is always compressed more and more to cover the delays of the phases before, and this is causing other problems coming later on. But I think we will touch that also in the next steps when we look at the processes.
Yeah, I see, Thomas. I was now thinking that those are very valid points, and I was thinking like it's so late that you like it seems the project just wants to do the check, like a check. We have completed the testing, rather than taking also that opportunity to having a learning phase, and start involving the people and show them how they are going to work.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you both. Just before going to the next slide, I see we have a new participant, Renaud. I'm not sure if I think you have a French name. I see you're not on Menti, so you can just type on your computer or your phone menti.com, and then use here this password to enter, so you can also give your insight in Menti, so we can also see your answers popping in our screen, okay? All right. So back to our audience. So I want you to check out these 4 categories. So we have project management, business owners and SMEs, IT and development team, and external consultants and partners. So when you think about validation in your project, who out of these 4 categories is actually driving validation? It's never just one answer, right? We never have a unanimous answer. Okay, so
And I was also thinking,
yeah.
I was also thinking, Victoria, that also the external consultants can act as project managers, or IT, the IT team somehow. So
You're right on that, Chris. Yeah. So 3 project management, 2 said business owners, SMEs, and 2 IT and development team. Okay. Now we talked about who drives it, and now I would like to also talk about the end users. Okay. So in your projects again, when are the end users involved in validation, if they are involved at all? Is it at the very beginning? Is it during the development? Is it only during the UAT phase, or No one considers them. They're not involved at all.
It could surprise me, but who knows? Knowing that UAT is user acceptance test, I would expect some users to be there, right?
Exactly.
At least there. Oh.
Okay, but yeah, listen.
All right. Always surprising answers. Okay, one at the beginning, one during development, three only during the UAT, and someone said that they're not involved at all. Actually, two. Okay, all right. That's very, very interesting insights that we're getting from you. Now, Chris, I wanted to ask you the following question. So, what is a typical validation and rollout process, and what matters most in each stage? So, if you could please give us an overview of our process.
All right, so this is the process that we use at Share PLM. I think most of the phases you will relate to, and there will be not a surprise. But what I would say is the most important thing is really taking the time to strategize and to plan the testing. Like what is the scope of the testing? What are the scenarios or the business scenarios we are going to test? What is the success criteria, right? Like what do we expect as an outcome, and also how we are going to validate that these test cases or this information is correct, and then put them in a plan, in a realistic plan, and not in 2 days you have in a rush that you don't have time to prepare and so on. So that will say for the strategy and planning, even if we are going to go more in detail with that later. Then have a clear understanding of what is the landscape of the tools that we are going to use. How we are going to execute, how we are going to document and validate those scenarios and the testing that we are going to do. Have a clear communication, not only towards the users, but also internally, how we are going to communicate together about testing results, how we are going to make sure we are taking care of the issues that we learn from the testing, and so on. Once you have planify a little bit that and decide what you are going to do there, you need to start preparing the testing and implementing the testing. You might have your super key users, as we have here in this slide, your group of people from the business that are going to execute the testing. And for that, you need to give them some preparation, right? You cannot just tell them, test how to create documents or test how to create a bill of materials. You really need to show them how they need to perform this task in the tool, because it will be also the first time or one of the first times that they are really hands-on with the platform. Once you start with the preparation, you move to the execution phase. Well, that's more about daily meetings, and so to keep track of what is happening and how we are doing in the testing. And last but not least is training and go live, right? That's left at the very end of it, but this is one of the key parts of the validation and rollout process. Right, you need to make sure that the solution is ready for the users, and at least the super key users that have been involved in the testing, they feel confident to use the platform and to perform the new way of working in the tool. Yeah. So that's, I would say, a summary of the process, starting with the strategy and planning, defining your framework for testing, making sure you have a communication plan, communication channels clearly defined, and then preparation of the testing, execution of the testing, and readiness for the training, and consequently go live. Victoria.
Thank you, Chris. That was a good overview. I see a question here from Ashish. So I hope that maybe now it's a bit clearer to you what we mean. But let us just go on through a few more slides. And if you're still a bit unclear about what we mean, you can let us know in the chat, okay? So Okay, now that Chris has explained all the steps that we use, I have a ranking question for you this time. So, which of the steps would you say are the most challenging in your projects and which are like a bit less challenging? So, when you rank, your number one would be the most challenging and your number six would be the less challenging. So I'm going to give you like a few, maybe a minute or so to do your ranking here. We have the first participant responding. Mm-hmm. So far, strategy and planning is the number one challenge, followed by testing preparation and implementation. And then somewhere in the middle, we have testing framework. Oh, things have been changing. Okay, strategy and planning is still number one. Testing framework is two. In the middle, we have communication, testing, preparation, testing, execution, and then training and go live is being seen as the less challenging part in your current projects. All right. So one more question for you guys. So in your PLM initiative, do you actually have a validation strategy? And if yes, is it defined and communicated, or like you have a strategy, but it's only known within the core team? And or maybe it's partially defined, or maybe you have no clear strategy at all. Again, a plethora of answers. Okay, very split our audience is. So we have two that say they do have a strategy that is both defined and communicated, whereas we have other two people who have no clear strategy at all, and other two who have a partially defined strategy. Okay. Now, Chris, why do you think that it's important to have a testing strategy?
I mean, I think that, well, it is key to have the strategy because it allows the alignment in the activity that we are doing around testing, and it doesn't give, the opportunity for mistakes or misunderstandings in the future. So it's not only about the goals or the scope of the strategy, but also make sure who is the team involved, what are the roles and responsibilities of each of the team members involved in the initiative. It's about knowing what are the when we are going to do that, what is the expected outcome, and then what do we mean really for go live, or set up what are the expectations or the success criteria that we want to define for the validation to get approved or not. And this is one template that we like to use in our projects, where we try to give an overview of what is the testing strategy and planning that we use. And as you can see, like it's the data, the information is pretty obvious, right? Purpose, schedule, timeline, scope. But sometimes we are not having this because we are just in the operational mode, creating test cases and just having meetings to test the solution.
And I would really like to underline what Chris said, especially in the direction of the scope and the expectation management. Because in the validation phase, you have usually a very limited time frame. You have limited resources for testing, especially from the business side. But everybody is expecting that during the validation phase, the system gets perfect. However, this should happen, but the outcome is the expectation to the outcome of the validation phase is always there's a perfect system coming out of that phase. And you need to be clear in the expectations and define the scope, what is going to be tested and what is the purpose and how will this work on the time schedule in order to really make clear what will be the outcome and what is coming out at the end of the testing and the validation phase, so that nobody is surprised that you have a high quality tested but not built in the system during validation phase. But it's still, there could be some minor issues maybe and things like that. So it's very, very important to do expectation settings, to define the scope, and to align everybody on what's coming up in this few weeks for validation.
So this was also the most challenging step for most of our participants, right? So
yeah. And it removes a lot of noise afterwards in the process, because everything is clear. You have said already what is the purpose, what is the outcome we want to get out of this, what's the scope, what's the timeline, what is your role and your responsibility within this work. So it's about giving more clarity about the activity that we are going to perform.
thank you, Chris. Thank you, Thomas, for walking us through this first step. Now, let's see, we have another question for our audience. So, how are test cases and results mainly managed in your projects? So, are you using a dedicated testing tool? Is it mainly by Excel and manual tracking? Is it within an actual PLM system? Or is it mixed or maybe still a bit unclear? So half of the participants are using an actual dedicated testing tool, and half of them have a mixed or unclear. And we'll have another one that's using Excel and manual tracking.
I would be surprised if no one was using Excel. It's we use it so many times, so often.
That's true. Now, Thomas, what is your recommendation for managing tests and test results?
The recommendation is not to use Excel. No, it's a little bit of kidding, but on the other hand, if you look how mighty the testing tools and the proper tools for doing test management, tracking of issues, and really showing traceability between requirements and test cases and issues, they are so highly sophisticated nowadays. So they are really helpful if you need them. Like for example, if you take these ALM tools like Codebeamer or Polarion, or also tools that are more for bug tracking, like Jira or something, where you also can have all this kind of statistics and for proper test management and monitoring and reporting. So from my perspective, it's really the recommendation is not to use a dedicated or a special tool like IBC, but use a tool that is sufficient for your needs. Because sometimes it's you really want to have the traceability all through, then use the system where you have all the requirements in and define the test cases out of that and so on. But if it's not that important, then use at least a good bug tracking, issue tracking tool to get the monitoring done, to have a proper test management done. Because these tools really are supporting you a lot during the validation phase.
Yeah, and I was also going to say, Thomas, I don't know if you have finished or if you wanted to mention anything else.
No.
Okay.
Please,
I was going to say, like, this is also the phase where you define the application that you are going to use. I see Per commenting in the chat that is typically never only one system. No, we know that. Like there are integrations that also need to be tested. But here we were now talking about the application that you use to track the testing, and then of course, if you can see the 1, 2, 3, the different points, you will set up the testing environment, and it might be for only one tool if you are just testing one system, or it might be in several systems because you want to test these integrations, right? And then also to make sure what is the communication channel, like how we are going to communicate. If it's a Teams chat, it's a team chat. But I don't think email is an effective way of communicating this type of things. So how we make the communication more effective within the team, that's in here. Yeah. And then you have, sorry, James.
Thanks, Chris, for covering these 2 points I did not mention. And it's exactly like you do. Don't forget the environments. It's very important to have them, and to have them, especially for the UATs, being very, very close to production, using the same data to ensure that what you test is really what you have in production afterwards.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And therefore, if I look at the chat, the biggest challenge is to verify the end-to-end flow, and it's really, you can't do that if you have just isolated systems where you test on. So you have to have a testing environment which really represents productive environment to test all these flows and the dependencies between the systems.
I like also Ashi's response for IT. The strategy is very simple, right? Try to break the system. Like I've seen so many users to do that in testing. That is like, like you prepare your test cases perfectly defined, just one way, best practice, and then they go there and they just try to break it. And of course, sometimes they break it. And let's be honest. Okay, so here also on the right side, Thomas, we have the example of the testing tracker application. Like in this case, we used a PLM, well, actually a PDM system to track the testing cases. And, like what I mean with that is not only about having Jira, but configure Jira or Azure DevOps or whatever the testing tool you use. And document that in a way that everyone knows what's the structure of the test cases, what are the different stages of the test case validation, what those each of those mean, etc. So that needs to be clear for everyone.
Yeah, and that's a communication part to really bring this to all the involved people, to show them which kind of system, how to use them, how to go through the validation phase, and so also very important point. Yeah,
exactly.
And
we'll be talking. Yes.
Yeah, great comments, Renaud, regarding the flows. You have to define them, of course, to go through this, and it's where we emphasize on more in the upcoming phases of our process, and for the definition of this kind of flows and processes. But to have the environments up, you need to know, of course, which kind of systems and environments you need. But this is something that we, on the high level, we think should be also kind of part of the strategy, to say, okay, we want to have end-to-end testing from CAD to ERP, for example. And with that, you should be able to then define at least which kind of environment you have. And for the test cases, you go then deeper and deeper in the next steps.
It's been a great conversation, and I love how the audience is commenting as well. Now, let's move on. And I would like to ask our audience again, what typically breaks down during validation in your project? Is it basically the issue resolution takes too long? Maybe there's a lack of visibility on progress? Might be another reason that there's misalignment between teams. Maybe you have too many communication channels, speaking of communication just right now, or maybe the roles and responsibilities are unclear.
And I was also thinking now, Victoria, that maybe the issue resolutions taking too long is also related to roles and responsibilities not very, very clear, or not taking the ownership of what you should do. And Per wants to select more than one option. Like apparently there's not only one problem, right?
Yes. And different projects, different problems as well, right? Okay, so again, we have a bit of everything here. Issue resolution takes too long. There is lack of visibility on progress, misalignment between teams, and roles and responsibilities unclear. Perry saying, I want to select more than one option here. Exactly what Chris was just saying. It's never just one. Okay, now, Chris, I know that you had a lot of experience with communication. So why do you think that especially communication is difficult during testing?
I think because also in the priorities are also tested at the same time, and whenever we start testing, everyone focus on their own problems, their own issues, instead of looking at the big view and how this impacted the business value, as also Renaud was mentioning there. And that's why it is important that we not only prepare the strategy of the testing, but we also have a clear communication path, like how often we are going to meet, what is the purpose of each of the calls or standards meetings we are going to hold. And yeah, that's basically what we see as very important. And as you can see here, the communication is not towards the organization, but within the same team that is testing, right? Yeah, I don't think I have much more to add. I think it's important here, like in this example, we have the UAT, but also Renaud was mentioning in the chat how you have to validate two sides. Like, of course, you need to do your SATs. You need to make sure from a technical perspective the system is working. But most importantly is that system, it has to contribute to the business, right? So the business really need to give have to say the last word to confirm that this is actually matching their needs in terms of the business. Yeah.
And a clear communication plan is also very important, because the validation phase with the tests and go live coming closer, and then issues coming up, there's the high danger that this is going to lead to chaos, because everybody's becoming hectic. And if you have a clear communication guideline and structured setup of the meetings, where it's clear who is going to be informed at which point in time, then you can somehow reduce the risk of at least a chaotic communication, and have some more structure in it, and also taking care of the needs of different stakeholder groups.
Yeah, we were also saying, Thomas, earlier we were discussing about the testing framework and how, as part of this communication plan, you need to make sure people are onboarded, people are understanding what we are doing, how we are going to work, what is our process, what are our communications. So it's all part of the preparation. Like, as you can see, at this point, we haven't started testing yet. And we are preparing many things. This is the third step. Like we have halfway, and all we have done so far is preparation. So that's also something that we need to take in mind. That is not only about executing, but the preparation phase is so key.
Exactly. This is exactly what Thomas gave us a tip last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, that always preparation is key. And this is one of the best tips. And we can see that here it applies as well, right? Okay. To our audience. So this time I will ask you, what is usually the biggest bottleneck before execution starts? So is it that maybe the test scripts are not ready? Is it maybe that the data is not ready? Another reason might be that the users are not prepared, or in general, the environment and access issues exist. A bit of everything, as usual. Hmm. And very different categories as well. We have more technical, like the data is not ready, and then we have the people side as well. The users are not prepared. So
Yeah.
have
Yeah, and I mean,
differences there.
yeah, as part of that communication, right? How well we discuss now, but part of the onboarding, right? How you prepare and how you train the users.
Yeah.
It's
So speaking about biggest bottlenecks, we see that our audience has a bit of a mixed experience with different challenges. So what is your experience, Thomas, on that?
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's more or less the same. It's a mix of the answers that we got from the audience, and as discussed before, it has to do with the preparation, because if we look at test data, missing test data, wrong test data, is something that has to do with from my point of view, with a missing preparation, because it's maybe unclear what has to be tested, what is tested. The test scripts are not clear or communicated to those people who should prepare the data for the tests. The communication is lacking, so the users do not exactly know, starting from where to log in, what is the test system, how to use the test scripts, and how to follow them, how to enter issues, and so on and so on. So it's a broad range, where the root cause is mainly in the preparation of the testing phase. And that's also underlining what Chris said before. It's so important to step by step the preparation process, from strategy to preparation of these single test cases, which we have here in the process flow, really looking at the points, coming from the user stories, to curate the test instructions, and then bringing the test cases into the system, followed by preparing the test data, and then set up the test environment, the user accesses, and user rights. And after that, coming back to what we had before, also have a clear communication of all what you have done in these steps, in order to enable the testers to do their job properly.
That was a great walkthrough. Thank you, Thomas. Now back to you guys. So now we're talking about execution. So during execution, what do you think is hardest to control when it comes to these four options that you have here? Test coverage, defect management, progress tracking, or business sign-off? One person had the answer very clear in their heads, I think. That was very fast. Okay, so here we're more 50-50. So we have defect management and business sign-off. So Thomas, I see you smiling. So, and I'm gonna ask you if you agree with these results.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's, I mean, we've discussed the topic of toolset before, and with that you can really have a good overview of the coverage and do the monitoring and know where you're standing. The defect management is always a problem, because you really don't know what's coming. It's always a kind of surprise which kind of defects occur, and how long does it take to solve them, how long does it take to retest them again. So this is something where you really are challenged as a test manager or the responsible person there, because you have to replan and reschedule again and again and again. Be very flexible, and also you're depending on the flexibility of, for example, the business testers. So if the bug is fixed and we have a new deployment, then you have to have the retest in place. And this is something which makes it very complicated and really challenging. keep this defect management, including the deployment of the solved issues in place. The other part that was mentioned, that's also something I can remember very good from my past life.
Oh, come on.
It's at a system integrator, the sign off of business, it's always something like having to have the most perfect solution in place to really deal with it. I mean, it's a little bit it's maybe not that correct what I said, but it's the demand of businesses to have a solution that is really running and fulfilling the business needs. And therefore, it's clear that the business sign-off is nothing to be done quite easily. So it will work. I guess it will work in production because they can't afford to have this. So it's something which is hard to get. But that's also something coming back to the strategy and to have an aligned strategy with business, what needs to be fulfilled, what are the KPIs with which we get the sign off, we go in production. Is it zero critical issues? Is it 1 or 2? How many medium critical issues and so on? So if you're going to align with business on the strategy and the KPIs, then it should be easier to get the sign off, knowing very, very well, but that if it comes to the point, then of course business is looking a little bit more critical on the situation than during the definition of the strategy. So I can really feel with the answers we got here. It's I experienced the same, yeah.
And also tell us,
please.
Sorry. I was going to say something that you also said earlier, and now I lost the words. But basically, what I was thinking is the expectations alignment with the business. Like the problem sometimes, or many times, what I've seen is that you just pick a bunch of people in the testing phase, and you haven't involved those people earlier in the process. So they don't know what to wait. Like they just get these test cases they need to test. They just need to go to the system. You give them a training of what they need to do in the system, but they have not been part of the program so far. So there are higher rates that these people are also less positive towards the solution, and they are less collaborative in some way. So that's also something that I've experienced and that you also mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and with this, I mean, with some missing knowledge of the system and the capabilities and how it's really working, it's harder to discuss about some workarounds. If you have a critical looking issue, which kind of workarounds could you implement in order to go live? Because often you have some high pressure to go live. And with critical issues, you won't go live, but figuring out, okay, people know the system, they are enabled, and they are able also to discuss together about workaround. And if you reach that point, then you're really on a constructive, collaborative way also to maybe get the business sign off better than if you don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both for covering step 5. I see we still have 10 minutes, so let's see what we can do. Let's make the most out of them. So I have an open-ended question for our audience now. So what is typically missing when you reach the go live phase? And this would lead us to the last step of our process. We're not yet at this stage. Okay, so I understand you cannot really, you don't have any input for this question.
This is something you'll take out of the conversation today, because some others will probably have experience.
Yeah. System documentation is missing, someone says. I'll give maybe 30 seconds if anyone else would like to answer. Communication about the change outside the key stakeholders. Definition of success. So business value realization, fact-based KPIs.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Our
this
speakers
was
agree.
I think for the person that has put that, I think that's something we also mentioned in the vision, probably in the vision webinars, like in the first webinars, how we wanted to create this vision, and also to make sure it was aligned with the business values and yeah. And
Yeah, and going deeper and deeper in this process, in each process step, to define it more and more in detail, to have this kind of alignment and criteria. Yeah.
What else do we have? We have assuring of end-to-end process works or not.
Yeah.
And clear
Very important.
strategy on how to handle legacy data.
oh, the data migration
Yeah.
would have been also a fantastic topic.
So if you
Yeah,
have
that's
missed
it.
these webinars, you can find them either on YouTube, just write Share PLM, and they're on our channel. We have a special playlist so where you can find all the webinars. And of course, we have a dedicated website for our webinars as well. So you can find them there to get more information on what was discussed. Now, Chris, you have talked about training and go live a lot in previous webinars as well. And you said that it could be a topic of a whole separate webinar. So I wanted to ask you, what makes it so complex?
I think what makes it so complex is some of the things that people were also mentioning in this comment, like sometimes people are not properly trained before the going live of the system. We are lacking documentation. We are running because we have this go live date, and we are rushing. Sometimes that like the issues have not been resolved, and therefore are also delaying the preparation of the training materials. Like there are many things that happen in the rollout, and that can somehow impact negatively the successful go live, right? Because the training is for most of the stakeholders the first contact, or one of the first contact with the tool, and so we need to make sure that that onboarding phase is clear for them and there are no disruptions. So basically, I'm going to run because we only have 7 minutes left and some content afterwards. In terms of training and go live, our process and the recommendation is that we do first an alignment. We understand if there's any training, because sometimes we are just covering one piece of the features. But to understand who is the audience, how do they like to learn, what are the materials that work, what worked in the past, what didn't work. So to get that assessment and alignment, you could create the training strategy and plan, like understanding what are the roles I need to train, what are the learning modules they need to know so that they feel confident using the system. Then we move to the development of the training materials, and here you have plenty of possibilities. You can either have e-learning courses, you can have videos, you can have PowerPoints, step-by-step instructions. And to be honest, what works the most is to have a combination of everything, because when you discuss with people, like not everyone are the same, and there are people that prefer visual guidelines, there are people that prefer an e-learning course, self-paced, hands-on training, and so on. And so once you have that and you have decided to do, for example, a hands-on training, you need to make sure, the same as for the testing, that the training data and the training environment are ready. And if we pick the testing strategy that we were doing, that we were explaining today, this is exactly the same for training. Like we are now covering here in only one slide, but it's also a complete whole process where you start with your strategy, your roles. You need to make sure what is the framework, what is the environment you're going to use, what are the formats you are going to use for the training, and so on. So, the fact that it's all in one slide doesn't mean that it's so simple as making the training in a couple of days. And then you go with the training delivery, and as well, we typically have hybrid trainings that are a combination of self-paced training, material that are available anytime for the user, and also hands-on teacher-led training sessions that are very appreciated for users and depending in which scenarios. Okay.
Thank you, Chris. You can take a breath now. I think that probably next week that we'll be talking about adoption and engagement, we will go through some of what you already talked about in much greater detail.
Yeah.
So we just have 5 minutes, so I will skip maybe one question, and I will just ask our audience this final question. I would like to know, what is one takeaway you're taking with you from this session now that we have come to the end of it? It was a great discussion, great conversation between both the speakers and the audience as well in the chat. I don't think I've actually ever seen the chat this active before. So this means that you gave them some great insights that they had to debate with, let's say. So yeah, I would like to know our audience's one takeaway. I love that. Sharing is not only caring, it is a must. I love it. What is the formula to motivate business to do more regression testing?
That's a good one, yeah.
You can have a call with us. Take validation serious. Yes, go on, Thomas. Sorry.
A second one is a good idea for another webinar.
Yes. What else takeaways do we have? Take validation serious, involve business early, build a clear structure for communication of pitfalls during validation phase, recognize the challenges, prepare properly, avoid panic and chaos. That one they took from you, Thomas, right?
Could be from me, yeah, exactly.
Okay. I don't want to leave without taking one last tip from our speaker. So, Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, as it was mentioned before with the preparation, I don't have to say that again, like in the past webinars. That was also always my part. No, maybe just one comment to the question, how to motivate business. I mean, it can get very hard, especially if resolved issues occur again, and then motivate how you please do the retesting and so. Yes, this is a problem, but on the one hand, if it's in the more or less in the normal range to do just a few retests or regression tests that are already planned. So on the one hand, align on the joint plan, which usually consists of regression test phases. And on the other hand, also in the discussion of the why, it's about, yeah, the aligning back on the why do we do the project, what is the goal of the new system, what is the added value, and why is it so important to have a good system quality in place with a rollout and to start with it, and arguing also with the way that, or in the way that business is using the system after the go live, and they want to use it when they use it with real data in the day-to-day work. They don't want to do regression tests and finding other issues. They want a system that is running without issues. And the only way to ensure this is to do the regression testing.
Thank you, Thomas. We just have 1 minute left. So final words from Chris.
I would say in terms of practical tips, I think people were also already mentioning in the key takeaways. So I'm happy that the message was clear for everyone. And I would say involving the business as early as possible to make sure that we are all aligned on what's good enough for go live, like what is the success criteria, so that avoids a lot of conflicts afterwards, and you are not forced to make a decision under pressure. And then another practical tip I would say is, I think I remember mentioned this in the MVPs and pilot projects. Take the testing as another opportunity to prepare the users. That's in line again with involving business people early, right? Like this is all about opportunities to engage with the users and to make sure that they will adopt afterwards the new solution. So that would be my take.
Well, thank you both. Unfortunately, we won't have time for questions today. We're really sorry about that. But I want to thank you so much for being so engaging today. It has been one of my favorite webinars so far because of our audience. I believe that like you sharing everything in both Menti and the chat here has been great. So I would just like to quickly show you that we have our next webinar next week, again the same time, 4 o'clock. And as I said before, it will be about adoption and engagement. So we'll talk all things training, adoption strategies, different learning styles and user needs. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you there next week. And thank you to our speakers so much for joining for one more session.
Yeah, thanks, Vic, for facilitating this webinar again, and thanks to the participants. Really great discussion, great input. I really like that. It was lots of fun today.
Yeah,
it was.
I was going to say as well to Renaud, because he put a question in the chat, and I don't know if he has left now. But I think next week topic is very interesting to understand that the role of an OCM lead or someone supporting the human side of the transformation is very important for the success of the project. And even if we know that many times that's allocated to the project manager, the amount of work that they have to handle is impossible for only one person. So we discuss tomorrow, next week. Sorry.
Next week. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you
Thank you
next
very
week.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.